You were selling drugs at a young age? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, my parents were in prison.
Your parents were in prison?
Both, mom and dad.
Both your parents?
At one point in my life, myself, my mother, my father, my aunt, my cousin, and my brother. Our country, they have lied to us from the beginning about everything. I believe they lied about Hitler. I believe they lied about Saddam Hussein. They lied about Gaddafi. You know, Gaddafi tried to give the nation $1 billion.
$1 billion, yeah, 100%.
I can't hug my kids the way that I want to. I'm never going to be able to hug my wife. I'm never going home. He said, you don't want to be. He said, the path that you're on, you're going to be here with me.
We're here for the introduction of In and Out. It's a movement to change the world. It represents all things and all of us at all times. It's about freeing ourselves of any prison.
Welcome to In and Out Podcast, where I have dope conversations with extraordinary people who have been freed from some form of prison. I am Eric Giralt, your host, and today I'm talking with Pittsburgh Erv as he takes us on his continuous journey of beating the longest odds and achieving great success. What's happening, my brother? How you doing?
What's up?
How you doing?
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks for being here, man. I
right.
appreciate you for taking the time out and coming and having this conversation with us. So, you know, you can give some of that real game, talk about some of your life experiences, and, you can make an impact on those that's out there that's listening. So I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us about some of the things you got going on.
I'm honored, my brother. Pittsburgh Erv. Of course, I moved here from Pennsylvania 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago. Spent a little time behind prison walls and barbed wire fences. And after getting out, came home, hit the ground running with a day job, grinding on the music. I've accomplished some things, but I'm not where I want to be.
No doubt. Life is a continuous journey, so that ain't no trip. It's a journey for all of us, and you're uniquely positioned, like some of us, to have gone through some things, and I haven't met a perfect individual in my life, so it's important, that people like you who have been through something can kind of share your story, kind of let people know if they've been through any one particular thing that they might not be proud of, or a mistake that they've made, or a setback. That doesn't define them. It doesn't define us. It's not the final chapter. There's more chapters to be written to this book. So, number one, what did you do time for?
Drugs. So.
How much time did you do?
8 years.
Wow.
About 8 years.
Was it Fed time or state time?
No, it was state time.
Okay.
My sentence was 5 to 10, but I ended up doing 8, for getting into various incidents while incarcerated.
Gotcha. Was that, did you do your time in Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania, yes. Multiple institutions. SCI Somerset being the bigger part of it. Spent time in SCI Housedale, SCI Pittsburgh. So I did the tour, man, and getting into different altercations got me transferred. So.
Gotcha. What does SCI stand for?
State Correctional Institution.
State Correctional Institution. Okay. All right. And when did you fall? When did you do your time? I mean, when did it start?
I originally got arrested 2003, summer 2003, and I was convicted 2004.
Wow. So, do you remember the first day that you went in?
First day? Yes, I do. I mean, you never forget your first day, man.
Right.
I mean, because
I asked that question.
It's not a fear, but it's a fear of the unknown.
Right.
So, just not knowing what you're going to get into, and then we watch a lot of movies. So
right. We got eyes on
like,
what
we gonna have to deal with? What are we gonna have to deal with? And I ran into drama early.
Like
early
what kind
in
of
my
drama?
Bed, early in my bed.
Yeah,
I mean,
tell us about it.
Going to the state institution from the county jail, we have the processing institution where everybody goes, they dress you in blues. All the guys who are permanent, they're in browns. So while you're in blues, you get to do things like go to the gym, work out, play ball. And the first incident, there's a gym, like the workers crew have their own team.
Mm-hmm.
And, the guys in the blues get to play against those guys, but those guys don't lose. And they cheat. And, the refs are like institution workers like COs and people who work for the jail. So they cheat for those guys because those guys are there,
Yeah, they can't
long
let y'all
term,
beat 'em.
long term. So I got this guy from Philly on my team, and I could ball a little bit when I was a smaller guy.
Right.
And, we were beating on him. And we're talking, we talk. No, you can't mess with me. And one of the guys just sucker punches my guy from Philly. So we just start ripping. Big old riot. And it's the staff fighting too.
Right. Wow.
You got COs hitting us in the head.
Get out of
Yes. So, and the doors are locked. You can't come and go as you please. So the whole gym is locked until they release you.
Okay.
So we ripping and ain't nobody there to stop us.
This in county jail?
No, this was in the state.
This is in the state. Okay, first.
So this is the processing jail.
Okay.
So afterwards, when all the guys that I was cool with, that I was playing on the team with, get transferred to their permanent jail.
Got you.
Guess what? They make Erv permanent resident of that institution.
Wow.
So now I got ongoing beef with these dudes. They already don't like me because we already was fighting.
Oh no.
So it was like, every time we run into one another, and it's like no COs around, it's going down.
You had to be on go 100% of the time.
All the time. And originally where I'm from, where I'm born, it's a small town. So although I spent a lot of my years in the city of Pittsburgh, I wasn't born there. And there wasn't a lot of people from my side in that institution because it was in Harrisburg, PA. So there wasn't a lot of Pittsburgh guys, wasn't a lot of Brownsville guys, or anybody even near where I'm from. So it's just me. So I'm constantly got to watch my back. Getting the threats, if he comes to the gym, ain't no fair, nothing, he's gonna get jumped or stabbed.
Yeah.
That's the type of threats I used to hear all the time. But me being young and stupid, I'm like, he ain't gonna punk me.
Right.
End up regretting that.
Right.
Best believe.
Right. I can imagine it's being in the jungle when you first get in there. Was that what type of mindset did you have on the street before you went in? Were you on go all the time in the street?
I was
anyway?
No. I was real quiet, reserved to myself. I mean, of course I had my childhood friends that I grew up with. But I didn't, I stopped. The deeper I got in the streets, the less I hung out with my friends. Like I didn't do much. I didn't do a lot of clubbing. I traveled a lot, but I stayed to myself more because I didn't want people in my business know what I'm doing. Like, even my childhood friend, even though he was in the same business I was in, we didn't deal with each other as far as the streets go. And I kept all that separate.
Got you.
So.
When you say the deeper you got into the streets, did you grow up in the streets or like, how did that go?
I guess you could say it's cliche, but I was born in it.
Okay.
So.
You were selling drugs at a young age or?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, my parents were in prison.
Your parents were in prison?
Both, mom and dad.
Both your parents? At
one point in my life, myself, my mother, my father, my aunt, my cousin, and my brother all in state prison.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Say that again. Your mother?
My mother, my father, my aunt, my brother, and my cousin.
Oh, wow.
All locked up at the same time. And when it's all said and done, I ended up in the same institution as my father.
Yeah, well, how could you not? That's a tough, sounds like a tough scenario.
But that was coincidental, though, because I had to get transferred to that institution to get a barber license. It was one of the only ones close. So,
well, I mean, how could you, with your circumstances and growing up is what I meant. One could see, how at some point or another you ended up taking that path, of criminal activity.
Right,
because you almost didn't have a chance.
Of course. I mean,
so how old were you when your parents was in prison? Like what age were you? Both your
the
parents
first time, I mean, my dad was in and out. When I was born, he was in prison.
Wow.
1977, he was in prison. So he's been in, he did 10 before we both got out the last time. My mom, she did 2 bids.
Wow.
She did 5 the second time. She did 2 the first time. And I think it was 89 or 88. So I was young.
So how old were you when what was your age? I'm just trying to figure out and understand. How old were you at a point in your life when you were a child, when both your parents was in prison?
About 11, 12 years old.
So who raised you?
The streets.
Wow.
I mean,
yeah, you really went
I didn't
by the
have
streets.
I didn't have a I mean, all my friends' parents kind of like, you know, a lot of people ain't gonna take somebody else's kid in, you
Right.
know? So I floated around a lot, like
Gotcha.
just sleeping on couches, going from I mean, I lived with many different people.
Wow.
Many different people.
Wow.
So,
Did the state ever try and get involved and try and take
No.
them once? Okay.
no, that's what's crazy. My sister was 18
Okay.
the
So
first
she
time.
was, she was the first
But
one.
she was
responsible for you?
incapable.
Right.
She was incapable. So eventually cousins took me in. I stayed with them for a year. But although I was quiet and peaceful, I was still uncontrollable.
Right.
So that didn't last but about a year. So I was just, you know, and they were like, to me, they get a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You know, they were super squares in the church, like, you know, bedtimes and all that. I wasn't used to that.
Right.
Bedtimes and, you know, they had money, but they wasn't with buying Jordans. And, you know, I remember going off because my whole team wanted Reebok pumps, you know, my basketball team, and they wouldn't buy it. And then when my brother, he was in the streets, he went and bought them. And they had an issue with it and they tried to give them back. So I used to like just,
Wow.
man, you know, I used to just run away. You know, I was young, I used to run away. But, you know, I was just a problem. You know, I wasn't a bad kid, but I was a problem child. I mean, it's hard to explain. You know, I never was good with authority, I guess.
Right.
You could say. So,
I mean, I'd imagine you had a lot going on in your head.
right.
At 11 years old, did you were cognizant and you were conscious that your parents were in prison?
Right.
Do you remember
Exactly.
what, you know, some of your mind, like your perspective or your thoughts at that time, your mindset?
I mean, I was a kid trying to be a kid, but honestly, looking back, like hindsight 2020, I was like, I had to grow up a lot faster than
Of course.
a normal child would. So, I mean, eventually I ended up getting my own place at like 15. I
Wow.
was selling weed, and, you know, I got my brother to get an apartment in his name for me.
Wow.
So, you know, I just couldn't live with nobody. I couldn't, like, nobody's telling me what to do. At
Right.
that age, like, I'm grown, you know. And even me and my father had issues, you know, when he came home from prison prior to me going.
Okay.
You know, you come home after you've been gone all these years and you trying to put your foot down like you're daddy. Like, nah,
Right. Because the relationship is
I
not
ain't
there.
with it. You know, I actually squared up with him one time, and
Uh-oh.
his line was, "Oh, you think I'm gonna fight you, motherfucker?" Excuse my language. You think I'm gonna
Right.
fight? So he pulled out a knife. I took off, you know. But me and my dad had a real love-hate relationship.
Wait a minute. Your father pulled out a knife?
Yes.
Oh, man.
My father's a little dude, like
Okay.
5'7", but really, he's really with it.
Right.
Like, I mean, he stabbed my mom's
Sounds
brother.
like, oh,
I watched him stab my mom's brother
Oh,
2
my
or 3
goodness.
times. I watched him shoot people. Like, I know what he will do. And if he say he's gonna do it, he's gonna do
you're
it.
going to do it.
You know, I mean, as a kid, the cable guy came to turn our TV off because he didn't pay the bill. He refused to let him. He pistol whipped the cable guy.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, he
Wow.
did some time for that. But that's the type of stuff I watched my dad do growing up when I was a kid.
Jesus.
So when he pulled that knife, there was no doubt that if I tried to fight him,
He's
He
going
was
to let you know.
yeah, he was gonna stick it in me somewhere.
Right. Might have
You
been
know,
like a
so-
Marvin Gaye situation. He's
Exactly.
going to let you know, I brought you into this world.
Exactly. And my dad could fight too. He could fight, but he just, you know, at that age, he wasn't doing any more fighting.
Right.
He
Right.
wasn't doing too much fighting.
Right.
You know,
So that's tough. So you were selling drugs, or you was, you know, in the street trying to figure it out
Right.
at that age, and then what, you know, fast forward, like, take me what led up to the time of you know, how you ended up getting incarcerated, or what were some of the different things you were doing with some of the different businesses you were in?
As I said, once I got deeper in,
Right.
when I say deeper in, I mean like, okay, now this is my life.
Gotcha.
Because at first I was just doing it like, I can't eat. I don't want to go to school with holes in my shoes. I don't want to be dirty. So I'm just doing that to like, basically it was survival.
Right.
You know, it's survival. But once I got older, it was like, okay, this is my life. This is
a
my
profession.
career. This is my career now. So
Gotcha.
now I'm going hard. At first, it's just like, I just need a little bit of money to get the things I need, necessities. But then
Right.
after that, it's like, yo, I'm trying to get $1 million. So then I really got in deep, like taking trips, going to see them folks, you know what I
Right.
mean? Trying to get them numbers low, you know?
Right.
So
Were you going like cross country or international?
Arizona, Texas.
Right.
Yeah, so
This was weed or cocaine? Or what?
started out with weed.
Okay.
Started out with weed. So, and it's funny how I got, because I never wanted to sell cocaine. Never wanted to. I always had this theory in my mind, like people that sell this stuff, they always end up on it. So I don't even want to
Right.
deal with it. But the guy I was going to see in New York at first, he was smart. He was real smart. You know, we call this thing when you give, like, when you're dealing with fiends, they call them J's down here.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they trying to clean up, and we ain't doing that today. We give them a little free. We call it feed the dog a bone.
You think you ain't doing nothing.
Feed the
today.
dog a bone, right? So they were smart. I come up there and get 10, 15 pounds of weed. I get back to PA. You know, there's 9 zips of coke in there.
Oh,
I'm
man.
like, they ain't charged me for it.
Right.
They know what they was doing.
Right.
Right.
Take a taste of this.
Before I even looked at the weed, the coke was gone. I'm telling you, it was gone
Right.
because it was good, you know. So I was like, "Fuck that." Next trip, I went and bought a half a key.
Yeah, because they figuring if he can move this weed, imagine what he could do.
Next
with the
trip,
coke.
I went and bought a half a key in New York, and it was on
From
ever
him?
since. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
They
on
said,
ever
we got
since.
the money back. It don't matter. We gave him the first 9. We gave him a start.
Exactly. They knew what they were doing.
Wow.
It worked, but you know that money was so good, man. Like, and you know, in Western PA, like the places I ran, it was so sweet because nobody was like snitching on nobody. Like a lot of people wasn't getting busted like that. It's crazy up there now. Everybody's getting knocked. I call home, there's 30 people going down
Wow.
every other week, it seems like. But back then, nobody was snitching, nobody was telling, you know, and usually when guys, when a lot of people go down, it's because somebody's telling.
All the time.
So it was hard to get us because nobody was telling. You know what I'm saying? So it was a beautiful time. We was getting money. Like all my friends was getting money. Like I said, we were separate. We didn't deal with the same connects. We didn't deal with the same customers, but we always get money.
Right.
Every once in a while we come together and we ball out like, you know, some BMF type shit.
Right.
So we go to the club, buy all the bottles. You know, I don't even drink half the shit back then.
Right.
Like I'm buying bottles of champagne. I don't even drink because I just want to see everybody have a good time.
Right.
You know, so
Just getting money.
right. So
So
I mean, it's a fun time.
right. But so you said nobody wasn't telling. People wasn't getting locked up. Y'all was making crazy dough.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, what happened? How did it end to indictments and sentences, convictions?
So me, the way I got busted was crazy. Like,
How so?
And I'm thankful that because when I got knocked that day, I just saw something. I had 6 whole joints, and I gave most of them off.
For
Like 6 kilos.
Okay, you got 6
whole
birds.
joints.
All
I
right.
gave most of them off. I had 2 left,
Right.
and I had this chick I was fucking with. I had the 2 at her crib because I planned on calling somebody to come get them.
Right.
You know, and I didn't live far away. So when I heard that, you know, I got a call like, yo, they out here, you know what I'm saying? They coming to get motherfuckers warrants. I said her sister was on drugs. Her sister was on drugs bad. And I'm like, I started growing a conscience, like, oh, I can't leave this in the house because they're gonna come for her sister, they're gonna find us. She gonna go to jail.
Got you.
So I got caught when I was mobile with it. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
But it was mistaken identity though.
Wow.
They stopped me looking for somebody else. The descriptions were similar: tall, dark skin, long braids. I had long braids, yeah.
Wow.
So it was a guy, like I'll never forget his name because we was in the jail together in the county. His name was Nelly, Darnell something. But I understood because, you know, I was a little chubby. He was a little chubby, tall. I'm tall, dark skin, braids. Like shit. But still, the way the arrest went down, you know, I should have beat the charges, but, you know, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. A lot of times they're not gonna let you beat it.
Right.
This thing is designed.
Oh yeah,
Once
they
got you.
fabricated the whole story. They fabricated, and
that's what they do.
And there was cameras in the area where they got me, but the cameras weren't operational.
Wow.
So yeah, they fabricated the whole story. It was bad.
All right.
You know, I had a good lawyer with what I thought was a good lawyer, but you know, spent a lot of money on him. But just didn't work out in my favor.
Right.
But everything happens for a reason.
Everything happened
man.
for a
Like,
reason. I didn't
I
ask
mean,
you.
I'm kind of sorry that I missed all those years with my son, but that changed me forever. Going to prison for those years changed me forever. Like,
In a
I
good
got
way?
wild. Yes. I mean, you know, a lot of guys go in there, they waste time watching ESPN, sports, gambling. I read books.
All right.
On average, about 4 a week.
Okay. That's what's
So,
up.
And I got linked up with some good brothers, started working out real heavy. And then we had this quote unquote book club, but it was really
You had a book club in prison.
book club.
Yeah,
But it was
that's
really the NOI,
Okay.
you know, and 5%ers meet up, but
Got you.
they're outlawed in Pennsylvania.
Are they?
You can't.
They were positive in the prisons. I guess that's why they outlawed them.
Hey man, you know, they couldn't say that it was a meeting for them. So
For y'all that don't know, that's NOI is Nation of Islam.
Nation of Islam. yes.
Followers of Farrakhan, or you know,
And Fruit of Islam is basically their army,
Right.
basically their protection.
Right.
And then there's a 5%ers which spun out of the Nation of Islam.
that's what's up. Appreciate you for sharing that. You and I might know. They're not as, you know, some people still know exactly who they are, but some people don't.
Right.
You know, in this
Right.
day and age, they're just
Right.
not as popular probably. And I guess it depends on the region that you're in also, maybe
I
sometimes.
mean, I believe in what they stand for because it's positive, uplifting your people, educating your people, uplifting the community as a whole. Like, their foundation is phenomenal. If we live by that now, I think our people would be we'd be doing so much better as a nation, as a culture.
Right.
You know?
Right, and that's what I meant by they were like. And so I did Fed time in the South, but you know, all I could see is the nation. I mean, I already know about the Nation of Islam before I went in, but when I did go in on the inside, you know, it was always about peace. They was about knowledge of self.
Right.
You know, they probably outlawed them because they used to teach. You know, they would teach that the white man is the
Exactly.
devil and this and that.
Exactly.
I don't necessarily, you know, I mean, I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
But I can understand where it's coming from. You know, and
But
they give black people a lot of times something to believe in and something to be a part of, and
Right.
black proud and that type of
Right.
thing.
But that's part of the reason why the 5%ers, they didn't believe in hating white people.
Okay.
So that's why I kind of gravitated more to the 5%ers
Gotcha.
than the nation.
Right.
But, you know, for the most part, outside of that, the Nation of Islam was a positive thing, for sure.
Okay. All right.
So
So you were down with them. Did they have a positive? Were you down with Nation of Islam before you went in?
No.
So you got
Knew
down with
nothing
them?
about
Okay.
it. And there's a big community in Pittsburgh, which I didn't know. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the first masjid was in Pittsburgh. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. So, but there's a big Muslim community, Sunni Muslim in Pittsburgh,
Okay.
and I had no idea.
I know they're strong in the Northeast because they were strong in New York, and honestly, I remember seeing them in Atlanta pretty strong in the Atlanta area, and they right on Martin Luther King over near the West End. I know they got a masjid over there.
Right.
And they don't seem to be. I don't know if it's as popular or as big as you know now as it was then. But I always thought they were pretty positive. But I remember that a lot of times they were very controversial because some of the statements that Farrakhan would make,
Yes.
and sometimes he would say things that would really make the Jewish
Right.
community come out very strong,
Right.
and they want to repudiate him. And if you said anything positive about Farrakhan, you know, you were scorned for that.
And if you're familiar with cancel culture,
Yes,
it's basically what they did to Muhammad Ali for speaking up,
that's right.
because he also gravitated toward the Nation of Islam.
That's right.
And, you know, he was very, 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 very outspoken about the plight of our people in this country.
That's
You
right.
know, his famous statement, the Vietnamese is not my enemy.
Viet Cong never
are
did nothing
my
to me.
enemy.
That's what he
You
said.
are my enemy. You know, which, you know, he told no lies, but, you know, they stripped him of his titles. I mean, they banned him from boxing.
Right.
You know,
That's
so-
dope that you say that. And I didn't really think of it that way. But what you just tapped in on, Irv,
Cancel culture.
is cancel culture really started back. They was already doing cancel
Right.
culture. They just didn't call it that.
Right.
Because if you was black and you was in entertainment or you was in business, it doesn't matter what you was in. If you was in politics, you better not dare say something positive or be seen with the picture taken or anything like that with Farrakhan. Because they said that he was preaching hate and this and that.
Right.
But obviously we know Farrakhan was
Anti-Semitic.
anti-Semitic.
But
There you
he's
go.
never once said anything about hating them or killing them.
No.
Or none of
He
that,
didn't.
you know, and there's so much controversy around that. I mean, I could get deep with that. We could have a whole.
We gotta have a whole nother conversation.
We could have a whole nother about.
Because you just started something now.
The 12 tribes of Israel and all, you know, what Kyrie Irving went through. And,
oh man, right.
You know, and Hitler, like, in my opinion, just from my research, our country they have lied to us from the beginning about everything. I believe they lied about Hitler. I believe they lied about Saddam Hussein. They lied about Gaddafi. You know, Gaddafi tried to give the nation $1 billion.
$1 billion, yeah, 100%. They said no. They wouldn't let him do it.
The Clinton administration blocked.
Yeah, they wasn't going for that.
But they painted all those people as monsters.
Right.
You know?
Right. And that's almost a rabbit hole. Like I said, we can go down that.
Forever.
We can have a whole nother conversation on that. And you know, honestly, it's current and it's relevant right now because of what's going on in Israel with Hamas and the Palestinians, and you know, obviously they're literally at war right now. Right. I really don't want to touch that too much.
Yeah, we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. But I will say this:
I don't want them to. They can't really cancel us. You know, because you can't cancel the podcast.
I will say this to the people: always do your own research.
That's right.
Always, you can trust but verify.
That's right, and make your own decision.
I trust you, but I'm going to verify the information you're giving me.
That's right.
Learn for yourself.
That's right. Because if and I'll say this, and I want to ask you some more about. We'll jump off this topic.
Right.
Farrakhan was a history teacher, so if you want to repudiate him or get mad at him for anything, it was just being a history teacher. And like you said, if you really want to know about history, then you really just need to do your own research. But so with that said, so when you went to prison and you know, what were some of the things that made you, or that might have influenced you to kind of click up or join like the Nation of Islam? Do you feel it was a positive? Did it help you make positive changes in your life?
It wasn't something that I was setting out to do. It just was like some good brothers that I worked out with, and you know, they just invited me to the book club, you know, and I was like, you know what?
Why not?
Yeah, why not? You know, because I was trying to do something other than what everybody else was doing.
Right.
So I kind of stayed to myself a lot, you know, especially once I got to, and this was an SCI house jail, which was a really rough jail, really bad. I mean, riots, crazy. It was really bad there. Actually, there was a riot like right before I left that jail, but I went to the book club. They gave me some books to check out. Look, I want you to go read this. Come back next week. You know, basically quizzing me on it, you know?
Right.
But the books were so deep. I was like, Stolen Legacy. Bruh. Stolen Legacy? Like Greek mythology? There's no such thing. They stole everything from the Egyptians. Like,
wow.
Man, like mathematics, astrology, all that. I mean, we already had it.
Right.
You know, but you know, they conquered Egypt. They gave the books to the philosophers, and now it's theirs. They claimed it. So.
Right.
But when I read that book, it just made me it gave me a hunger for more. So I was going back every week, like, put me down with something else. Yo, give me some more books.
Okay.
Like, and that's how it started. And then it went from that to just me coming there to listen to them speak at the meetings, because they really was meetings disguised as a book.
Right.
Although they did.
Got you.
Reeled me in with the books.
Got
but
you.
It's the meetings, like, you know.
Because they was really afraid of the organizational aspect of Nation of Islam, because you're not allowed to organize in prison. So they turned it into a book club. Okay, I like that.
Exactly. You can, even in the yard, only two could work out together.
Right.
If there's 3 or 4, they're breaking that
That's
up.
right.
They don't want you coming together in groups like that, because I mean, it's dangerous for them.
That's right.
You know, I mean, same reason why they kept Mumia Abu Jamal on death row even after he got it overturned. I also was in the jail with him.
Oh, were you?
Yes.
Wow.
But I couldn't see him. We're on the same block, so you could talk off the gate.
Okay.
We couldn't see each other because we were in a hole.
Got you.
So, but yeah, they, you know, stuff like that, anything that's influential, they're trying to block that. And Mumia, they were afraid. He's a political prisoner, so they was afraid they put him in population, what he would do.
He can influence too many people. They was definitely afraid of that. Still are.
Exactly.
So so it sounds like the Nation of Islam really just it quenched the thirst that you have for knowledge. And when you started getting that knowledge, What type of mindset, what was your mindset and how did it change?
From then
Once you started reading,
I still had a lot more time to do. From then on, my whole focus changed.
In which way?
I already was planning what I was going to do when I came home. Like
Okay.
I was like really trying to like just get my life together. Like I had a plan. Like I'm not coming back here. And partly when I was in the first institution, I was telling you about the intake. Once they switched me over to the Browns, which made it my permanent jail, there was a guy that was doing life. In Pennsylvania, life is till you die.
Life is life.
Pine box.
Yeah, that's how it is in the feds.
You're never getting out.
Yeah, there ain't no parole or early release. Life is life.
Like 2 jewels this guy dropped on me. He said, one, he pulled me aside, he said, look, I can tell you've been through some things. I can tell you was getting to $1. And I can tell you've been around.
This is the guy that was serving life.
Life.
Wow.
He said, keep that shit to yourself. He said, these niggas ain't this is exact words. These niggas ain't never did shit. They ain't never been nowhere. They're never gonna believe you did it. And it's just gonna create like animosity and jealousy and you're gonna have issues. So just keep all that shit to yourself.
Wow.
So I literally had a dude walk up on me talking about he owned a label in a studio that I built from the ground up. But I let him get it off, like,
right.
Because like I took that advice. Like don't tell them anything because it's gonna create jealousy.
Wow.
That's one jewel. And then the next thing he said, look, I'm never getting out of here. You got a chance. You got a chance in life. I can't hug my kids the way that I want to. I'm never gonna be able to hug my wife. I'm never going home. He said, you don't want to be. He said, the path that you're on, you're going to be here with me. He said, you don't want to do that.
That's deep.
And there used to be this radio show on Wednesdays that played like old school slow jams and he would blast it. The COs would not mess with him. And he would just cry, whine, and everybody could hear him all night, just crying out the gate, And I was like, man, I can't do that. Not the rest of my life. And here, and I was definitely on that path.
Right.
Like, had I not gone to prison, I was doing a lot. I mean, some I can talk about, some I can't talk about, but I was doing a lot. Trust me. Like I always joke, even with my lady, I say, you got the good Erv. If you'd have knew me 20 years ago, you'd be afraid to talk to me.
Right.
Which is, it's not even cool to say, but it's just real.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, Erv, because, like you never really want to say like going to prison is a good thing because it's not.
Right.
But it's just like a lot of other things that we all may go through in life. Like sometimes those bad things or negative things that seem like they negative, they can become very powerful lessons in life and actually make you a better person if you get the lesson. And it sounds like, to me, listening to you, that you got the lesson.
Definitely.
And I'll tell you something else. Like I've spoken with, I know a few people that had a life sentence. They had the elbow and they lived a certain amount of their years, where they lived a certain amount of years having an elbow in prison thinking that they would never get out. Right. And a couple of individuals I know them because they did get out.
Right.
One of them I was in prison with. And so a couple of those cats that I've talked to that had to spend years of their life thinking that they were going to die in prison, like the brother you speak of, are some of the deepest individuals that I ever met in my life. And it goes to a matter of perspective. Because they had I understand now that they had a perspective that just, it changed them because, the way that they look at life is differently than you and I.
Right.
It's even possible to look at life because even though we did time, we had an out date. But so what that brother told you, some of the books that you read, how did that change your perspective? I know you spoke about, it gave you, like you said, I noticed you said you had a plan. What type of plan did you have when you got out? Because when you have a plan, now you've got a goal. And when you got a goal, I've learned that you won't easily be distracted.
Right.
So talk about those plans that you had.
So, I mean, I like to talk about like being self-educated. I went to college while I was in the streets, off and on, you know, because when my son was born, I had a thought like I need to straighten my life out, but it didn't work. It didn't work because the streets just kept tugging at me.
Kept pulling you back in.
So I would go to school, I would drop out, I would go back, I would drop out, So I'm trapping, trying to raise a son, trying to go to school, just, but going to prison and experiencing that, I have this talk with my friend Bruiser. He always says, we always talk about having laser-like focus. So you can put the magnifying glass on a piece of paper and set it on fire because it's so concentrated. The sunlight is so concentrated. You need that type of focus to accomplish things, especially some of the things that we've overcome.
Right.
I've been proving people wrong almost all my life, and you have to have that laser-like focus, and you got to be a little stubborn. But experiencing that in prison, it gave me that focus. Like, this is what I'm going to do. When I get out of here, first of all, I'm never coming back. Secondly, I started writing down some goals, and I basically hit every goal within the first 5 years of coming home.
Right.
And my idea was to educate myself, read. I read on average 4 books a week.
Wow.
Yeah, 4 books a week. I mean, I had a decent support system, like as far as women, they used to send me books all the time. And then some of the prisons I was in, they had great libraries, and I utilized it.
That's
I was
awesome.
in the library.
That's
I was
dope.
in there. I was in the law library. I was in the, recreational library, because I won a couple of lawsuits, one of them being Target, the corporation, recently. But, I sued a halfway house I was in, but I spent a lot of time in the law library studying up on law, and it became very useful to me. But I just got this focus, and once I wrote my goals down on paper, my determination was, I'm getting out of here, I'm not coming back, and these are the things I'm going to strive for.
Wow.
And some of them were small goals, some of them were big. One of them was just silly, buy BMW, a big boy BMW.
Right.
Did that.
All right. Check.
Buy some real estate. I did that.
Check.
Start businesses. I did that. Very attainable goals, but even when I had all the money in the streets, I never took any of that seriously.
Too many distractions.
I bought property I didn't care about. I mean, even when ex-girlfriends took property, it's like, let her have it.
Right.
Cars, everything in her name, let her have it. I don't care. I didn't take any of that stuff seriously. There's all kind of businesses I wanted to start. Like, I kept telling myself, I'm gonna get out the game. I'm gonna clean up my money. All these businesses, I had these ideas. I never really took it serious because the streets was just, I don't know. I think it kind of was like a rush.
Right.
Like taking trips and, the shit that these rappers talk about. Like, I really was doing this stuff.
I already know.
And that's one of the things the old head told me in jail. Like, yo, they're not gonna believe you did any of that shit.
Right.
Like, you would really think I'm talking about a movie if I told you some of the stuff that I did or some of the stuff I've been through. Like being in Kansas, getting pulled over by the cops, and they took me to a cornfield, and I thought they was gonna kill me or beat me down. But they had a little unit in the middle of the cornfield. It looked like children of corn shit. Like,
wow.
Bruh.
Yeah, that sounds like some movie type stuff.
They took $75,000 from us that day. So
wow.
But that's the type of stuff that I knew that I should just keep to myself while I was in there. But my focus was to change my life, like really change. Like, I don't want to go back to the streets when I get home. I want to be there to raise my son. So I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life.
That's awesome. So Erv, for me, like that's a touch phrase for me when you said when you were in prison you developed a laser-like focus.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was able to develop a laser-like focus too. I was able to get clarity of thought. I felt, when I was in there, even though I was going through the pain of being away from my family, I got a better appreciation for time because I took time for granted and how I spent it and who I spent it with. So I was able to personally take some of those things that I learned and they carried over when I got home. So they actually became an asset for me. So it sounds like you coming home and now you're able to sue different corporations. You're able to apply that same type of focus and really almost like it gives you a sense of knowing that if you apply that type of focus, like most of us can, if they could reach that type of focus, you could accomplish anything you want. Was it like that for you?
Yes.
Did you?
I mean, that Go ahead.
Did you have? Well, go ahead. No, I want.
No.
Go ahead and explain.
You first, please.
All right. Well, because I was kind of jumping around because I had different questions I
It's
want
all
to
right,
ask.
brother. We got time.
Did you have a family before you went to prison? Did you have children?
I had a son. Yes, I had a son. And one thing I know for sure, I loved him more than I loved myself. So I was willing to do anything to change my life for him. But I wanted to change his circumstances so that he didn't come up living my circumstances.
Right.
So my parents were both in prison. I didn't have nobody. I floated around. I got family that was well off that didn't care to. They didn't know if I was sleeping on a bridge. They didn't call. So, but I wanted my son to have opportunities that I didn't have. And that's cliche because every parent says that, but it's really true. And I came up in a really racist state. Western Pennsylvania is terrible.
So
I'm
I
talking
hear.
about couldn't get a job, and you have even McDonald's and Dairy Queen, been there since 1950 and never had a black employee.
Wow,
You know what I'm
that's
saying?
incredible.
Until like 96 or something,
That's crazy.
couldn't even get an interview, so
How old was your son when you went to prison?
7, I think. 7. I have to do math. I'm bad with math, but yeah, I think he was like 7. Yeah.
Was you a big part of his life when you
Yes.
when you went to prison?
Yes, I have full custody of my son.
You had full custody of your son before you went to prison.
Yes.
So, man, what was that like for you when you had to leave your son, and what was it like for him?
I have a lot of regrets about that because designating the people that's going to take care of him, I made a big mistake with that. Allowing his mom's family to take up that role was the worst thing ever.
Okay.
And that's a long story in itself, but but the main thing being them brainwashing him against me.
Was his mother in prison?
No, his mom was on drugs.
She was on drugs.
Yes.
So you couldn't designate her
Right.
because you had custody. So you
Right.
figured you would designate
And we were
someone
young.
in her family.
We were young.
No doubt.
Yeah, but the family, they brainwashed him. Like, he looked at me a certain way when I came home. It took me a while to
Your son?
rebuild. Yes. He was told, I didn't care for him. I never was there
Wow.
for him. I didn't do nothing for him. Financially, they took care of him. I sent him to Disney World, and I did, before I went to, I gave his mom money so they could go. It's like they claimed that.
The
They
family
did-
claimed that.
They did that.
Wow.
Your dad never did anything. He didn't even, when you was a baby, we even bought your diapers. Your dad didn't care for you.
Wow.
He was so young when I went to prison that he didn't remember.
Did you get a chance to see him while you were in prison?
They would never bring him.
They wouldn't bring him.
But, me, I'm determined. Laser like focus, man. Like, I'm going to see my son.
Right.
So what I did was have one of my friends just say that they were going to take him to the zoo or
Okay.
something.
Okay.
And they brought him.
So every
And
now
we
and
had
then
to
you
keep
got
it a
chance to see
secret.
him. All right. That's
So
dope.
only twice, though, the whole time I was gone.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. So I guess it's part of your plans. What did you think about, like, when you were in prison, about when you got home and how you were going to spend time with your son and what were you going to do and stuff like that?
Well, I didn't know the extent of the brainwashing until after I came home. That's what you look forward to, like getting home
No
and,
doubt.
and having that relationship, rebuilding that relationship, because you have, talking to them on the phone, it's just not the same. You could still have an impact on your kids, even if you're not presently with them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, did I say that right? Yeah.
100%,
Even if you're not in their
yeah.
presence,
Right.
you can still have an impact. The conversation, the type of father I am, I'm a no nonsense. I don't believe in fairy tales. I don't sugarcoat. Like, I give it to them real.
Right.
No matter, as long as they're old enough to handle it.
Right.
I never lied to my son. I never made up stories. I never, my son never believed in Santa Claus. Like, I just don't do that,
Yeah.
And I'm even fighting with that now because I'm raising his son. I'm raising my grandson, who I found out about him 3 years after my son was gone. So, but it's a tug of war with me and my lady. He's a kid. He's 7. We're celebrating Halloween. We're like, I don't want to. We have to sugarcoat a lot for him. Dealing with his mother and what she's going through and why he's with us. But I don't believe I should. I think he should know the truth, even at that age.
Right.
You know, this is why you're here with us. But
So Irv, how did
it's
your
a
son
matter of
pass?
opinion. It was a car accident, but caused by the police.
Wow.
Yeah, so the day of his death,
Wow.
and I have a lot of regrets, man. A lot of regrets because, like I said, I have full custody. He was in high school. He lived with me in the city of Pittsburgh.
When you came home, you got your custody back of your
Right.
son,
So he lived with
and
me.
he was living with you.
And I moved him to the city,
Okay.
which he didn't like
Okay.
because he was going to the school for all his life. And, you know, he was a basketball star, soccer star. And
Was he?
Yes. But
Wow.
he, you know, they won the section repeatedly. And, you know, he was like the second leading scorer.
Wow.
And, you know, he begged me, his mom's family begged me to let him go back there. So while I'm living in the city of Pittsburgh, he's back in Brownsville. And I allowed him to go
Okay.
because he had the opportunity to do great things in sports.
Okay.
And I'm like, maybe he could get a scholarship.
You can't blame yourself for
You
that.
know? But it was under the promise of mom's family that, oh, we got him, we got
Okay.
him, we got him. I should have known better. But anyways, that's not the reason he died. He had a girlfriend. He's spending time with his family. The girlfriend goes up to the house, picks a fight with him, grabs his phone, throws it in the woods. She takes off in her car. So being a teenage boy, you arguing with your woman, he goes after her in a car, you know, trying to get a call on her, trying to get her to stop, pull over, you know, let's talk, you know. And there's multiple people in her car, but she speeds past the police
Wow.
instantly.
Day after.
But
He's right behind.
But she's a white girl.
Oh man.
So he's behind her.
in Western Pennsylvania.
Yes, he's behind her. She zips past. They instantly hit the lights, but when he goes past right after her, they go separate ways, but they get on him and not her. They let her go and they get on him. He's in the car by himself, so they follow him. He panicked. He takes off. And I thought he just lost control for a long time because the police refused to release the dash cam footage. I had to file a lawsuit. I had to do all this stuff. It was ugly, and I wasn't even in my right mind,
Right.
you know, because I had a good case, but I just couldn't keep up with it. But anyways, I never watched the video, but my mother did and my niece did. And
Oh,
they
wow.
said-
She
they
saw the
said
video.
They saw the cops kind of caused it. Like it was
They did one of
like
them
a pit
maneuvers.
maneuver, yeah. And they ran them into the wall. The back of the car was smashed in and the front of the car. And I really knew something was up. Something was wrong with what they did because usually when there's an accident, somebody dies, the cops show up at the house or they talk to the parents.
Right.
When I got to the hospital that night, the cops, they were there, but they snuck out another door. Like they walked in the front door, but after I got there, they snuck out a side door so they didn't have to come past me.
Wow.
You know, and they could say they didn't do it on purpose, but I know what it was.
Right. They didn't want
You
to
know,
look in
and
your eyes.
then it was like, you know, got the lawyer, you know, I'm trying to see what happened to my son. Like, I just want to know. And they refused to release that footage. It took a year, but I knew they were showing their guilt with that,
Right.
you know? So,
Why wouldn't you release it?
exactly. So I filed a lawsuit and, you know, I just, like I said, you know, for a good year or two, I was a whole different Erv, you know? Like, I'm just now getting back to myself, but,
I could
you know,
imagine.
I was deep depression. I was functional, but I was depressed. I
Right.
mean, after that night, you know, because I drove to the hospital, it was an hour away, hour and change, but my girlfriend at the time drove back. And when I got home, like, that whole next week, I don't remember. Like, it's like I have amnesia.
Right.
But she said I didn't get out of bed for 3 days.
Wow.
Not to use a bathroom, not to eat, not to talk to nobody. 3 days straight. And I don't remember that though.
Right. This is
You
like a
know,
blur.
so, but for the whole next year, it was bad. Even though I was here, I kept my head down working, you know, because I moved right after. And I started a business in Sandy Springs, and I was working hard. And
What kind of business did you start?
it was a call center, like customer service and
Okay.
collections in the same building. And
Right. That's what you started your own
Yeah,
call center?
me and two friends.
Okay.
So
I did collections. I didn't start my own, but I was working for someone else when I came home. That's one of the things I did. The call
so
center.
yeah,
Debt
I
collection.
invested some money in my friend Sneaky, Marvius Hester. He's actually Bankroll Fresh's brother. If you're
Okay.
familiar with Bankroll Fresh, Sneaky played in the NFL also, but
Bankroll Fresh, the rapper, right?
yes,
Is he?
he's dead.
That's
He's
what I thought.
deceased.
Okay, he's the one that died. That's what I thought.
He died. Actually,
Yeah.
I was on my way from Pennsylvania to meet him at Street Execs on the night he died. He had a show in Columbus, Georgia, and I got a call from Sneaky, which is Marvius Hester's brother. He said, they killed my brother. Like, who? Because he got a lot of brothers.
Right.
He said, Fresh, man, I almost crashed the car. Like,
Wow.
but yeah, me, Sneaky, and another friend from the Bronx, we started that business, and because of some shiesty business, I had to close it down. I went in a hole, but opening that business kept me busy, and it got my mind off of, it kind of brought me out of my depression a little bit,
Right.
So
what were some of the things? I mean, listen, this is it's something that I've never experienced anything like that, and it's got to be the toughest thing that a parent could ever experience in life. Period.
definitely is.
What are some of the things that you do that helped you to to kind of continue going on and still keep striving, and what are some of the things you did, some of the other businesses or jobs that you had?
So staying busy, it kept me from going crazy. And even still to this day, if I'm home alone, which I rarely am, like I never stay in the house. I'm never home. Like I'm always running, like even in my job, like I do 80-hour weeks, you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And then, I'll get up at 4:30 in the morning, leave for work around 5:15, work a 12-hour day, come home, eat real fast, shower, then I'm off to a music event. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm busy. And if I'm sitting still and it's quiet and I'm by myself, my mind goes to that. I start thinking about my son, or
So
I
it's
start
still
thinking
difficult
about,
for you 8 years later.
it's better, because it used to be like, it's tough for men, especially black men, to say, but like sometimes I just bust out in tears
Right.
out of nowhere. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Because like what just made me think about that? It just, my mind goes to that automatically. If I'm not busy, I don't mind.
Yeah, it shouldn't be
So,
tough. I know what you mean.
And there's a lot of times, it's not as frequent now, but there's a lot of times when I would wake up out of my sleep crying. And I don't remember anything, like I was dreaming or nothing, but
Right.
it just, and my mind is automatically on my son, So, but it's not as frequent now, and then, it's difficult for us to talk about things like that, because to us, especially coming up where we came up, it's like weakness.
Right.
And we don't want people to see weakness.
Right.
People can smell weakness on you. They can
Right.
smell fear on you. So,
Right.
even when I'm at home and there's days when I'm just sitting quiet and I'm not talking, and, the kids or, my lady would think that I have issue with them. What's wrong with you? What's wrong? Like, why are you upset? Why are you mad at us? Like, and I can't even tell them it's not you. Like,
Right.
my mind is somewhere else. My mind is on my son, or I'm going through it. His birthday being September 20th, like sometimes they ought to just know, like, yo, this is not a good time.
Right.
But they always think it's an issue I have with them. And I don't want to, sometimes I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to say it's not you. I'm just going through it right now. It's something I'm dealing with internally, or it's, just randomly. It could be, doesn't have to be his birthday. It might just be a day where something reminded me, his favorite rapper was Wiz Khalifa,
Oh, wow,
and,
and might hear a song or something.
If I, bruh, like, it's not usually hard for me to talk about it, but sometimes it is.
Right.
Sometimes it is. So.
But you do have the blessing of having his son, your grandson.
I do, and that was amazing. Like, not knowing about him, and then finding out that I could possibly have a grandson. It was like, I was so excited.
That's amazing.
I got a call. Somebody from Pennsylvania called me, and it's somebody I didn't really know that well, but he called me and said, "Bro, I think, this little boy looks just like you." My first thought was, man, I ain't got no other kids. Man. Like, what you mean? I live down here. Like, he's like, no, I think this is your son's child. I'm like, nah, my son been gone 3 years. How? It's like, bro, he's like about to turn 3. So I call my best friend who's in the feds right now. I said, man, I need you to go check that out for me. He called me and he couldn't talk. Somebody had to grab the phone because he was crying.
Wow.
My best friend was crying. And later when he called me, he said, bro, he looks just like Dre. He looks just like Dre. I was like, shit. You know, I was excited though, you know? So I instantly was like, start planning my trip home, you know, got in contact with the people to do DNA testing, you know. And there it was, you
That's
know,
beautiful.
just before his 3rd birthday.
And you have custody of him now?
I don't have legal custody yet, but
You spend a lot of
he
time.
lives with me full
Okay.
time.
That's beautiful.
You know? So, I mean, I initially, you know, his mom, you know, she wasn't prepared to be a parent. Like, she just doesn't have her life together. And I'm not going to badmouth her here, but I moved. She was basically homeless with my grandson. She has 2 kids. She has a daughter and my grandson. The other father has the daughter, but my grandson and her were basically homeless. They had nowhere to go. They had no friends to stay with. And I found out by accident. I go home to, you know, deliver Christmas gifts and all that stuff, you know, and visit family. And I go to call her and say, hey, I got some stuff for Javion. I'm coming over. And she's like, I don't live there no more. Like, where are you at? So I go to where she's at. She's literally, there's stuff all over the floor in a bare apartment that one of her friends just moved out of that she hadn't turned the key in yet. So she let her stay there until she turned the key in, but she's sleeping on the floor with my grandson. And they just got blankets on the floor. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, I got evicted. I don't got nowhere to go. I'm like, what you gonna do? She's like, I'm just gonna sleep in a car. I'm like, you can't sleep in a car. It's -5 degrees outside. So I made arrangements for her to stay with my people until I could make arrangements here. Then I went up and got both of them, brought both here, allowed her and my grandson to live with me for 3 months, rent free, helped her take care. And till she saved some money. She saved up a good amount of money, found an apartment, and my grandson and her moved to Norcross, which is about 40 minutes away from me. I'm in the Smyrna area. So at this point, she's back in that situation.
Right. But what is your son's name? Your grandson's name?
Javion.
So Dre lives through
Javion.
Javion.
Yes.
That's no joke. That's a blessing. That's a beautiful blessing. Listen, brother, you know, so the team is giving us, you know, a few more minutes. Gave us the you know, the sign that we got to kind of wrap. But listen, you know, number one, I want to thank you again for coming on. I want to ask you that this is the first conversation we have, but not the last, because
hopefully not.
You know, we got in a lot, but I know there's so much more to get in.
Right.
And I want to give you an opportunity and ask you, you know, because every conversation that I have with people, like we talked about in the beginning, is unique, and everybody's got a different story. Your story hits me in a different way, and I'm sure it's going to hit a lot of people in a different way. With the loss of your son, and that, you know, that terrible tragedy that you went to, but then the blessing of finding out that your son had a son, and now you get the opportunity to raise your grandson. So, you know, just talk directly to the people, man, and anybody that you could tell.
So we didn't really get to touch base on a lot of things that I'd like for you guys to know. The fact that I'm real deep in the community here and back home, doing work, you know, feeding the homeless, back to school drive, feeding first responders, voter registration drives, you know, and, you know, some of the things I've accomplished in the music industry. You know, we didn't get to touch base on that, but I just want you guys to know about some of the positive things that I've done that kind of balance out the wrong that I've done, the bad that I've done. So I feel like it's a need to put that positive energy back into the universe. After beating down and breaking down and destroying my community, I spend time actively uplifting my community now. I do a lot for the youth. I do a lot for everybody. maybe in the next conversation we'll touch base on that. But
No doubt.
just know that it's all positive now.
No
You
doubt.
know, I've done my dirt, I've done my wrong, but I'm making up for it every day of my life now.
No doubt. We can see it. We appreciate it. Give them your social media where they can find you.
Okay, so I'm on Instagram at ErvMGM and the number 2. So ErvMGM and the number 2. On Twitter, ErvMGM. On what's the other one? The new one, Threads, ErvMGM.
All right. That's dope. We heard it from Pittsburgh Erv. I told you it was another authentic individual, a wonderful human. You've heard the ups and the downs that he's been through, and now we see his drive, we see his strive, we see his laser focus. We've heard the depths of lows that he's been through, as well as the blessings and the heights of being able to, reconnect with his son through his grandson. It's a beautiful thing. And, he gave us a lot of jewels. We're going to have him back on so he can tell us of all of the many successes and the things that he's doing now. You know where you can find us at In-N-Out WW on all platforms. That's INNOUTWW. We're going to be launching soon. You're going to be able to catch us anywhere where you can find podcasts. You can find us on all forms of social media. Thanks for signing in. And now we out.
Brother, it was an honor.
All right, no doubt.
It was an honor.